Cinderella by Charles Perrault. Cinderella, or the Little Glass Slipper. Once upon a time, there was a nobleman who married for a second time. His second wife was the proudest and haughtiest woman that had ever been seen. She had two daughters of her own who resembled her in everything. The gentleman also had a young daughter of rare goodness and sweetness of temper. She had inherited these qualities from her mother, who had been the best mother in the world. The wedding was scarcely over when the stepmother's bad temper began to show. She could not bear the goodness of this young girl, because it made her own daughters appear the more odious. The stepmother gave her the meanest work in the house to do. She had to scour the dishes and tables, scrub the floors, and clean out the bedrooms. The poor girl had to sleep in the garret, upon a wretched straw bed, while her sisters lay in fine rooms with inlaid floors, upon beds of the newest fashion, and where they had looking-glasses large enough to see themselves at full length. The poor girl bore all patiently, and did not complain to her father, who would have scolded her if she had done so, for his wife governed him entirely. When she had done her work, she used to go into the chimney corner and sit down among the cinders. Hence she was called Cinderwench. The younger sister of the two, who was not so rude and uncivil as the elder, called her Cinderella. However, Cinderella, in spite of her mean apparel, was 100 times more beautiful than her sisters, who were always richly dressed. It came to happen that the king's son gave a ball, and invited to it all persons of fashion. Our young misses were also invited, for they cut a very grand figure among the people of the countryside. They were highly delighted with the invitation, and wonderfully busy in choosing the gowns, petticoats, and headdresses that would best suit them. This made Cinderella's lot still harder, for she had to iron her sisters' linens and plait their ruffles. They talked all day long of nothing but how they would be dressed. "For my part," said the elder, "I will wear my red velvet suit with French trimmings." "And I," said the younger, "will wear my usual skirt. But to make amends for that, I will put on my gold-flowered mantle, and my diamond stomacher, which is far from being the most ordinary one in the world." They sent for the best hairdressers they could get to make up their hair in fashionable style, and bought patches for their cheeks. Cinderella was consulted in all these matters, for she had good taste. She advised them always for the best, and even offered her services to dress their hair, which they very much agreed she should do. As she was doing this, they said to her, "Cinderella, would you not be glad to go to the ball?" "Young ladies," she said, "you are only making fun of me. It is not for me to go there." "You are right," they replied. "People would laugh to see a Cinderwench at a ball." Anyone but Cinderella would have dressed their hair awry, but she was good-natured and arranged it perfectly. They were so delighted they almost did not eat for 2 days. They broke above a dozen laces in trying to lace themselves tight to have a fine slender shape, and they were continually at their looking-glass. At last the happy day came. They went to court, and Cinderella followed them with her eyes as long as she could, and when she had lost sight of them, she fell crying. Her godmother saw her all in tears, and asked her what the matter was. I wish I could, but she could not finish for sobbing. Her godmother, who was a fairy, said to her, "You wish you could go to the ball, is it not so?" "Alas, yes," said Cinderella, sighing. "Well," said her godmother, "just be a good girl, and I will see that you go." Then she took her into her chamber and said to her, "Run into the garden and bring me a pumpkin." Cinderella went at once to gather the finest she could get, and brought it to her godmother, although she could not imagine how this pumpkin could help her go to the ball. Her godmother scooped out all the flesh and seeds inside, leaving nothing but the rind. Then she struck it with her wand, and the pumpkin was instantly turned into a fine gilded coach. She then went to look into the mousetrap, where she found 6 mice all alive. She ordered Cinderella to lift the trapdoor. As each mouse went out, she gave it a little tap with her wand, and it was turned into a fine horse. The 6 mice made a fine set of 6 horses of beautiful mouse-colored dappled gray. Being at a loss for a coachman, Cinderella said, "I will go and see if there is not a rat in the rat trap, which we may make a coachman of." "You are right," replied her godmother. "Go and look." Cinderella brought the rat trap to her, and in it were 3 huge rats. The fairy chose the one which had the largest beard, and touched him with her wand. He turned into a fat coachman with the finest moustache and whiskers ever seen. After that, she said to her, "Go into the garden, and you will find 6 lizards behind the watering pot. Bring them to me." She had no sooner done so than her godmother turned them into 6 footmen, who skipped up immediately behind the coach, their liveries all trimmed with gold and silver, and they held on as if they had done nothing else their whole lives. The fairy then said to Cinderella, "Well, you see here a carriage fit to go to the ball in. Are you not pleased with it?" "Oh, yes," she cried, "but do I have to go as I am in these rags?" Her godmother simply touched her with her wand, and at the same moment her clothes were turned into cloth of gold and silver, all decked with jewels. This done, she gave her a pair of the prettiest glass slippers in the whole world. As she got into the carriage, her godmother commanded her, above all things, to return before midnight, telling her that if she stayed 1 moment past that time, the coach would be a pumpkin again, her horses mice, her coachman a rat, her footmen lizards, and her clothes would become just as they were before. She promised her godmother she would not fail to leave the ball before midnight. She drove away, scarcely able to contain herself for joy. The king's son was told that a great princess, whom nobody knew, had come, and he ran out to receive her. He gave her his hand as she stepped down from the coach, and led her into the hall where the company was assembled. There was at once a profound silence. Everyone stopped dancing, and the violins ceased to play, so attracted were they all by the singular beauty of the unknown newcomer. Nothing was heard but a confused sound of voices saying, "Ha! How beautiful she is! Ha! How beautiful she is!" The king himself, old as he was, could not keep his eyes off her, and he told the queen under his breath that it was a long time since he had seen so beautiful and lovely a creature. All the ladies were busy studying her clothes and headdress, so that they might have theirs made the next day after the same pattern, provided they could find such fine materials and able hands to make them. The king's son conducted her to the seat of honor, and afterwards took her out to dance with him. She danced so gracefully that they all admired her more and more. A fine meal was served, but the young prince did not eat a morsel, so intently was he occupied with her. She went and sat down beside her sisters, showing them 1,000 curtsies, and giving them, among other things, part of the oranges and citrons with which the prince had regaled her. This very much surprised them, for they had not been presented to her. Then Cinderella heard the clock strike 11:45. She at once made her goodbyes to the company and hastened away as fast as she could. As soon as she got home, she ran to find her godmother. After thanking her, she said she very much wished she might go to the ball the next day, because the king's son had asked her to do so. As she was eagerly telling her godmother all that happened at the ball, her two sisters knocked at the door. Cinderella opened it. "How long have you stayed?" she said, yawning, rubbing her eyes and stretching herself as if she had just been awakened. She did not, however, have any desire to sleep. "If you had been at the ball," said one of her sisters, "you would not have been tired with it. The finest princess came, the most beautiful ever seen with mortal eyes. She showed us 1,000 curtsies, and gave us oranges and citrons." Cinderella did not show any pleasure at this. Indeed, she asked them the name of the princess, but they told her they did not know it, that the king's son was very much concerned, and would give all the world to know who she was. At this, Cinderella smiling replied, "Was she then so very beautiful? How fortunate you have been! Could I not see her? Ah, dear Miss Charlotte, do lend me your yellow suit of clothes which you wear every day." "To be sure," cried Miss Charlotte. "Lend my clothes to such a dirty cinder wench as you are? I would be out of my mind to do so." Cinderella expected such an answer, and was very glad of the refusal. She would have been troubled if her sister had lent her what she jestingly asked for. The next day the two sisters went to the ball, and so did Cinderella, dressed even more magnificently than before. The king's son was always by her side, and his pretty speeches to her never ceased. She was by no means annoyed, and indeed she quite forgot her godmother's orders. She heard the clock begin to strike 12, but thought it could not be more than 11. When the young lady realized it was midnight, she then rose up and fled as nimble as a deer. The prince followed, but could not overtake her. She left behind one of her glass slippers, which the prince took up most carefully. She got home, but quite out of breath, without her carriage and in her old clothes. There was nothing left of all her finery but one of the little slippers, fellow to the one she had dropped. The guards at the palace gate were asked if they had not seen a princess go out, and they replied they had seen nobody go out but a young girl, very meanly dressed, and who had more the air of a poor country girl than of a young lady. When the two sisters returned from the ball, Cinderella asked them if they had had a pleasant time, and if the fine lady had been there. They told her yes, but that she had hurried away the moment it struck 12. With so much haste that she had dropped one of her little glass slippers, the prettiest in the world, which the king's son had taken up. They said that he had done nothing but look at her all the time, and that most certainly he was very much in love with the beautiful owner of the glass slipper. What they said was true. A few days after, the king's son caused it to be proclaimed, by sound of trumpet, that he would marry the young lady whose foot would fit the slipper perfectly. They began to try it on the princesses, then on the duchesses, and then on all the ladies of the court, but in vain. It was brought to the two sisters, who did all they possibly could to thrust a foot into the slipper, but they could not succeed. Cinderella, who saw this, and knew her slipper, said to them, laughing, "Let me see if it will fit me." Her sisters burst out a-laughing, and began to tease her. The gentleman who was sent to try the slipper looked earnestly at Cinderella, and finding her very beautiful, said it was fair that she should try, that he had orders to let every lady try it on. He asked Cinderella to sit down, and putting the slipper to her little foot, he found it went on very easily, and fitted her as if it had been made of wax. The astonishment of her two sisters was great, but it was still greater when Cinderella pulled out of her pocket the other slipper and put it on her foot. At that moment her godmother came in. She touched Cinderella's clothes with her wand and made them more magnificent than those she had worn before. Now her two sisters recognized her as the beautiful lady they had seen at the ball. They threw themselves at her feet to beg pardon for all their ill treatment of her. Cinderella took them up, and, as she embraced them, said that she forgave them with all her heart, and begged them to love her always. She was conducted to the young prince, dressed as she was. He thought her more charming than ever, and a few days after married her. The end. Beauty in woman is a rare treasure which we are never weary of admiring, but a sweet temper is a gift more fair and better worth the youthful maid's desiring. That was the boon bestowed on Cinderella by her wise godmother, her truest glory. The rest was naught but leather and prunella. Such is the moral of this little story. Beauties that charm become you more than dress, and win a heart with far greater ease. In short, in all things to ensure success, the real fairy gift is a good nature. Talent, courage, wit, and worth are rare gifts to own on earth, but if you want to thrive at court, at least, so the wise report, you will find you need some others, such as godfathers or mothers.